This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. Tesla has avoided selling vehicles in India because of high import taxes, but that could change. The country currently slaps a 100% tariff on imported vehicles that cost $40,000 or more and a 60% tariff on cars that cost less. So, in order to avoid the tariffs, Tesla would have to build a plant in India, which President Trump says would be unfair to the U.S. But last week, Elon Musk met with India's Prime Minister in Washington, and now India is expected to lower its import tariffs on EVs as part of a deal with the U.S. And it could also raise the cap on EV imports from 8,000 vehicles to as many as 50,000. Likely as a result, Tesla started listing job openings in India earlier this week, including staff for showrooms and to manage orders and deliveries. And now Bloomberg reports that Tesla will start shipping vehicles to India in the next few months, and that it plans to start selling vehicles in Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore. But it's not yet known which models it will import or what factory they'll come from. And speaking of tariffs, General Motors says it can withstand President Trump's tariffs in the short term. GM Chief Financial Officer Paul Jacobson says that the automaker can shift production at existing plants that are, quote, relatively low cost. But if the tariffs become permanent, GM will have to discuss if it needs to move assembly. Jacobson also says that GM is quickly cutting inventory at its foreign plants by 30% and moving them to the U.S. as fast as possible so they don't get hit with the 25% tariff that Trump is threatening to start on April 2nd. Renault reported its earnings for last year, and the numbers look pretty good, except for one big problem it has with Nissan. But first, the numbers. Renault sold 2.2 million vehicles globally last year, up 1.3%. Its revenue jumped 7.4% to 56.2 billion euros. Its operating profit was up 3.6%, coming in at 2.5 billion. But its net profit fell by 1.4 billion, coming in at only 891 million euros. That's because Renault always counts on Nissan to provide it with a big cash infusion since it owns 36% of Nissan. But Nissan's profits had fallen 90%, and that really hurt Renault's bottom line. In fact, all the problems at Nissan cost Renault 2 billion euros in extra costs and lost profits. And during its presentation to analysts, Renault dropped some pretty interesting facts about the replacement for its Twingo subcompact car, which is now going fully electric. We think the design looks terrific and stays true to the look of its predecessors. But a lot of the initial engineering was actually done at Renault's advanced R&D center in China. The whole program was done in less than 2 years, which is lightning fast for a traditional automaker. The new Twingo has 30% fewer parts than the Renault R5. It uses a 23 kilowatt-hour LFP battery pack that Renault claims only uses 10 kilowatt-hours of electricity for every 100 kilometers it's driven. That converts to 6 miles for every kilowatt hour, which means it could be the most efficient EV in the world. But admittedly, it's a dinky little car with a dinky little battery. But that is still an impressive level of efficiency. The Twingo EV will be built in Europe, and it goes on sale next year.
Developing today's vehicles, issues can happen in an instant. What good is knowing your problems without the data to solve them? Meet Wireless Neovi Cloud, your secure off-the-shelf solution, empowering real-time collaboration for quick resolution. With Wireless Neovi Cloud, your team can prevent issues before they can escalate. Driver communication data and remote diagnostics to analyze and resolve your problems using OTA, allowing your executives oversight throughout the process. Wireless Neovi Cloud, your vehicle update solution in production and on the road. Intrepid Control Systems, driven by your data.
2024 was a rough year for Mercedes, and as a result, it's making a number of moves to make the company more efficient. It sold just under 2 million vehicles worldwide last year, a drop of 3%. That dragged revenue down 4.5% to 145 billion euros. Mercedes' earnings before interest and taxes came in at about 13.6 billion euros, which was down nearly 31%, while its net profit fell over 28% to 10.4 billion euros. And the numbers for this year might not end up much better. Mercedes says it's starting the most intense product launch program in the company's history, beginning with the all-new CLA this year. That will be followed by all-electric versions of the GLC, C-Class, and E-Class. Mercedes also announced that its next-gen van architecture won't be electric only and will have an ICE variant called van combustion architecture that shares about 70% of its components and will roll down the same assembly line as the BEV version. And the company will even come out with a smaller version of the G-Class. All that product will result in its investments peaking in 2025, only starting to ease in 2026. So to help turn things around, Mercedes plans to cut its global production costs by 10% by 2027. On top of plants it exited in France, Brazil, Russia, and Indonesia, the company says it's also considering adjustments to its dealer network and production footprint in China. Globally, it will trim manufacturing from about 2.5 million units to between 2 to 2.2 million. But it says it won't close any plants in Germany. Production capacity will instead be averaged out to 300,000 units at each site. However, Mercedes plans to cut fixed costs as well by 10% over the next 3 years, which will include discussions with its Works Council, as well as a reduction of management positions. Kia is providing a better look at what the production versions of its new commercial van will look like. The PV5 is set to enter production sometime this year, and the company is showing off the passenger and cargo models. They're a very simple box shape, which should provide good space whether you're moving people or packages. But other than saying the vehicles will leverage the company's EV technology, it didn't reveal many details. That will come at the end of this month at its second annual Kia EV Day, where it plans to show conversion options, derivative models, and reveal the global business strategy for its all-new commercial vans, or what it calls platform beyond vehicles. Everyone's complaining about the high cost of cars, and with good reason. The AAA, or American Automobile Association, published its latest numbers on what it costs to buy a new car and drive it for 5 years. And are you sitting down for this? It comes to an average of $12,297 a year. That includes the depreciation the car goes through, the financing costs over 5 years, the insurance you'll pay, the fuel you'll buy, and all the maintenance and repairs you'll go through. The AAA calculates these costs by looking at 9 different vehicle categories, and then it takes the top 5 selling models in each category. In 2019, the AAA said the average cost per year was $9,282. So the cost has gone up by $3,000, which helps explain why new car sales have never recovered to their pre-pandemic level. The transition to electric vehicles is going slower than anticipated, which is forcing automakers and suppliers to scale back EV plans. And now it's BorgWarner's turn. The supplier is planning to close 2 plants in the Detroit area and lay off 188 workers from the battery pack manufacturing business it acquired 4 years ago because it's shifting battery production to South Carolina. Last year, BorgWarner announced it's aiming to save $100 million over the next few years through job and spending cuts due to falling EV demand. New cars are going to be the topic on Autoline After Hours today. We've got 2 car critics coming on the show, Mark Phelan from the Detroit Free Press and Greg Migliore, the editorial director at Vertical Scope. And they'll dive into the pros and cons of the newest cars that are just getting introduced. So join John and Gary when the show goes live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time today. But that's a wrap for this show, and I hope to see you later today.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering boost your game. And by Teijin Automotive Technologies, the formula for better mobility.
Performance that shines, even in the rain. That's what really matters. Bridgestone Potenza tires, improved grip in wet conditions.
There's nothing wrong with heavy metal.
Hey, lighten up.
But with world-class composite material, Teijin Automotive Technologies makes vehicles lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly.